Interrupted debate on the first reading of the Food Safety Law Reform Bill.
Members, when we were last debating the first reading of the Food Safety Law Reform Bill, Richard Prosser had the call and has 5 minutes remaining if he so wishes.
So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Richard Prosser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will continue briefly with the call that was interrupted. I believe I was in full flight speaking about country of origin labelling when the break came at the last opportunity to speak on this bill, and I want to revisit that, Mr. Speaker, because it is an extremely important issue to many people, including to many in the sector. I believe I was going to touch on the fact that we do rely heavily on certification from overseas jurisdictions, places where food imports come from. And that's all well and good, Mr. Speaker, because they rely on our own systems in a similar way, and there has to be trust, reciprocal trust back and forth between importing and exporting countries. But there's a saying in some parts of the world, trust in God but tether your camel. It's all very well to take certificates and guarantees and so forth at face value from nations who we ostensibly trust, but there is no harm in embarking in the cheap insurance policy of checking as well, and of requiring that information to be backed up by as much additional information and detail as is possible. I have a statement, I guess it is. It's a letter of sorts from Horticulture New Zealand, Mr. Speaker, outlining their position on the matter, and it's one with which New Zealand First concurs entirely. We have a voluntary country of origin labelling system for food, which is a bit of an anachronism in the world. Currently it places decisions on whether to provide country of origin information with the suppliers, which deprives consumers of information that they want. It's not equivalent to, we have existing regulations that require mandatory country of origin labelling for footwear, whiteware, wine and clothing, but we don't have it for food. That disadvantages fruit and vegetable growers as their products are identified as New Zealand grown, and it means that our food regulations are out of step with Australia and 90% of our trading partners. They go on to say, they answer some questions there, Mr. Speaker. Is this a trade barrier? No. Most countries around the world have some form of mandatory country of origin labelling. Will we face retaliatory action? No. Again, for the same reason, because most countries with whom we trade have some sort of a system. But there is a perception, Mr. Speaker, and I think there's some validity to it, that there is a reluctance to accept these quite valid criticisms from across the sector and from consumers on the part of the government, probably because there is pressure from one particular supplier in terms of resisting having country of origin identified with some food products. And I won't name the country, Mr. Speaker, but I'm pretty sure we all know who it is, and there is a perception that because a great deal of financial support comes to the major party of government from that nation, that they are therefore reluctant to upset this particular nation by going down the road of country of origin labelling, which, as Horticulture New Zealand quite rightly point out, about 90% of the world does have. So our position is that we feel that a Food Safety Law Reform Bill that already aims to amend the Food Act is the perfect opportunity to include country of origin labelling when it was not included in the first instance. And, Mr. Speaker, I do hope that the government does take this opportunity to listen again to the valid concerns of people who are concerned by this, and to open its mind to the possibility of addressing them. Because it would be a great shame if the support of other parties across the House were to be withdrawn because the government found itself not of a mind to be open to those sorts of concerns. And all that said, Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to take up too much more time of the House at this stage, other than to reiterate that New Zealand First will support this bill through to the Select Committee, only the Select Committee at this stage, wherein we hope and trust that our concerns will be addressed, and our continued support beyond the Select Committee stage will be dependent on our concerns that we have being addressed and being answered. Thank you.
I call Todd Barclay.
Thank you, Mr.